Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Professionals You Should Know. This show is about uncovering the journeys from professionals from different industries. And today, we have the extraordinarily talented medical and technical writer, Olak Ahunanya. Thank you for coming onto the show. So, what is it that you do?
Hi, so I'm a technical writer and I work within the pharmaceutical industry.
Okay.
I have been doing this for the past 4 years now.
So what's a technical writer?
So a technical writer, essentially, I make sure that the right processes are in place to conduct clinical trials. And I also make sure that the right information is in place, whether it be for regulators, doctors or patients, essentially.
Okay, so when you say in clinical trials, is that for only for pharmaceutical things, or is it for like clinical studies for doctors?
So it's really just for pharmaceutical companies. So pharmaceutical companies, they run a lot of and they sponsor a lot of clinical studies that are run for different drugs that are being developed.
So what, you will be the person behind it to so what would you be doing?
So I essentially make sure that the right processes are in place. So as you know, the pharmaceutical industry is heavily regulated. So I basically ensure that the right standard operating procedures are in place to make sure that they comply with external regulations such as good clinical practice, and then making sure that it's in line with FDA or EMA and local regulations as well.
So do you have to have like an extensive knowledge about all the standards that needs to be done?
Mm-hmm.
And
yes. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And what? And you would again write? Would you form a what's it called? Would you kind of form a template?
Yeah, so I would, I work with templates, I work with, so essentially I write all of the documents that, the different, individuals would use to carry out a clinical trial. So that could be, clinical project managers, that could be, the statisticians, that could be, the people who, for example, the people who work within pharmacokinetics, the people who essentially analyze the samples that come from the clinical study. So essentially it's like an oversight, so ensuring that the clinical trials are run well and that the end-to-end process makes sense. So that's where I'm involved. So I'm involved at quite a high level.
That's dope.
And then on the flip side, I also work as a medical writer.
Okay, so what's the difference between the two?
So with a medical writer, I've really been doing that for 4 years now.
Okay.
And I've worked in different formats. I've worked within a medical communications agency, and really that was to do with helping pharmaceutical companies launch their products. So I would be talking to healthcare professionals. I would be talking to patients. So breaking down that information, making sure that the right information is getting to the right audience at the right time with the right amount of content, because how you would talk to a patient is very different from how you talk to a doctor. But more recently, I've moved into clinical submission documents. So essentially, helping with writing the study reports for clinical trials, how were the clinical trials run, writing the protocols. So that's essentially the methodology for
you would write the methodology for the
yes, obviously with consultation with the relevant with the relevant people. That could be the investigators, so the actual doctors who carry out. They would be the ones to actually carry out the trial, but essentially you're the one who's like writing it up. Wow. There's so many different people who are involved, like the clinical study staff. So that's what I also do on the flip side. And with a lot of those documents, they're now submitted to regulatory agencies such as the FDA, EMA. Everybody knows about the EMA, MHRA within now the UK, because we're no longer a part of Europe.
Yeah.
So
does that change in any way?
Some of the guidance has changed a little bit. So maybe how you would write a protocol for a study within the UK might be slightly different from how you would write it within Europe. So that's what I do.
But that's a lot of writing. That's a lot of writing.
It is a lot of writing. So you really have to make sure that you you're able to write concisely for
Yeah.
one, and you're able to write the right level of information for, you know, different audience, like regulators, like, so those are some of the longest documents. You know, patients, you know, you'd probably write in layman terms.
Yeah.
So it just really depends.
So I know you said pharmaceutical companies, like the whole COVID thing that happened, and I know they had to push through the drugs. Would you or would your team be a part of that clinical trials for when they were doing the COVID thing?
No, because the company that I was working for, they don't develop vaccines.
Okay, so what company?
They work within rare diseases, neurological diseases,
okay.
and I think some oncology as well, which is cancer.
Yeah.
So different pharma companies, they specialize in different things. So I think, you know, like AstraZeneca, Pfizer, they all develop, you know, vaccines. But Ipsen, they're a French company. I don't know of any vaccines that they were developing during that time.
Mostly are they kind of developing?
So drugs for rare diseases.
Name one or two.
Can I name it? Am I allowed to?
I don't know yet.
Actually, I think I can. Because it's a marketed drug. So there's one. There's one that's called triptorelin, and that's basically to do with children who have precocious puberty. Okay. So that's basically, you know, so boys and girls that develop puberty before. Basically before the normal time. Okay. So it's something to do with like an overexpression of a particular hormone. Right. So basically triptorelin basically helps to reduce the expression of this hormone and, you know, stop them from, you know, developing early, basically.
So, all right, for example, so they found this drug or medication, right? And then they would have to go through the clinical trials to make sure it's safe, I'm guessing. And then you'll be a part of that process to make sure that the clinical trials run smoothly, all the documentations are there, and then once, you know, all the results are out, do you send it off to like the MDA or
yeah, so essentially it will be sent off in a binder. You know, before you run the clinical trial, you have the protocol that's sent off. That's to do with the methodology. Right. It would usually
you're doing that as well.
Yeah, so it would usually you would usually submit it to, you know, to the ethics committee. So you don't just submit it to the regulators. You also need to submit it to the ethics committee to make sure that, you know, it's ethically, you know, sound and all of that kind of stuff. And then, you know, towards the end of the trial, you know, once the trial has been, you know, it's closing, you then, you know, start writing the clinical study report that would be submitted to the regulatory authorities. Yeah, that it is really interesting, but it is, you know, it's really, it's a lot of work. Yeah,
my goodness.
It's very thorough. Yeah, it's very thorough.
And and have you started like building relationships with the people that you're going to submit it to, or is it like loads of different people that you're targeting?
You wouldn't necessarily. I don't think you don't necessarily build relationships with them. It's just like they're just an organisation that you submit, you know, so the document to. It's something that, you know, you're kind of legally required to do. Yeah.
Wow. So what was your journey? Like, how did you become a technocrat? What was your journey?
So basically, I studied biomedical sciences. Okay. And I wanted to go into medicine, but then, you know, things didn't work out. But I guess God had other plans. Okay. And then I got into doing my master's. So I was really interested in, still really interested in science, but really interested in, I would say, like business as well. Like I was really interested in how, you know, drugs are developed. And so I then went to go and do my master's. I actually got a scholarship to do my master's. At King's College.
Nice.
And then from there...
Was that based on your biomedical?
Yeah, based on...
Based so you must have done really well.
Yeah. And then so through my master's I got the opportunity to basically do a 6-month placement at a pharma company, and I was working within drug discovery, and that was around developing a candidate drug. So they were screening a candidate drug. So there's the drug discovery phase before it even gets into drug development, where they test on, you know, they could be tested on cells, and then it moves into like in vivo models where you get animals, you know, and all of that kind of stuff. They could be tested, Yes, they could be testing on dogs. They can be testing on even monkeys. Rats. So I was.
And then what does it go to humans? Or?
Then it goes to humans once they run all the safety studies, and then the first human studies is basically just making sure that the drug is safe and finding the right effective dose and making sure it's safe. But so I was involved in a drug discovery screening program, and then I realized, because that was like heavily based in the lab, and then I realized I was like, I don't want to be in the lab. I don't want to be in the lab. It's long. I was killing cells. Like it was just like, it wasn't for me. Like I was contaminating the culture. So I was just like, okay, this isn't really for me. So I decided to go into writing because
that's a big jump from being in the cells, actually doing stuff, and then just
but I mean, it is a big jump, but I like looking at data. So with writing, because a lot of the time people think, oh, do you write for health magazines? And I'm like, no, it's not that kind of writing. Like, it's quite technical. So even though I wouldn't necessarily be the one to be, carrying out the experiments, I would be the one to collect the data and analyze the data. And what does that actually mean? What's the interpretation? Like, how do we interpret this data? So I moved into that. So my first role was actually within an advertising agency. Okay. And they would basically help, pharmaceutical companies with launching their drugs. And then, then moved into a medical communications agency, and I was helping them with big presentations at different symposias where you could have a group of, doctors and nurses coming in to learn more about, gastroenterology. So it could be IB, they could be wanting to know more about IB and, maybe, exactly. And then knowing what different therapies are out there and how they can help, their patients, the unmet need, and, pharma companies would come in to educate, these doctors and nurses on these unmet needs and how their, drugs can help. So I was involved in that side of things. Then moved into pharma companies working, and then I took on a role as, basically like a process writer. So that's how I got into the writing side of things, making sure end to end can it makes sense in terms of
the processes that I place. Did someone introduce it to you though, like the writing side of it?
Somebody did. Like I was trained, but it was
so
just
there's a training process to
I was trained but a lot of it is you learn on the job, right? But I kind of just fell into them. So whatever opportunity came up, it sounded interesting. I went for it. So that's how I've got to where I am now. Basically with clinical submission documents, and that kind of stuff. So it's a long journey, but not a long journey at the same time, because I've been in so many different spaces and stuff.
I'm guessing you like the variety of certain things. I
do. I like the variety. I think I'm someone that gets bored easily. So I think if you're someone that likes variety, you like doing different things, you like working on different projects, then I'll probably say, and you've got that science background and you're interested in science and you like writing, then I would say it's a good thing to get into, because you work on so many different projects. Like I've worked on there's one for tryptophan, like I told you, there's one for even most recently, I think the one I'm working on right now is solid tumours, for cancers,
Okay,
so
to break down cancer? Or to...
so basically that one helps. So it's patients who have had their first line of chemotherapy and they haven't responded. Right. So basically, it's the company I'm working with, they have a drug that basically helps to...
break out.
Yeah, that helps to basically fight the cancer after these set of patients with solid tumours.
You would do the reports for that one.
Yeah, essentially the reports. So I'm not the investigator, because the investigator would be a qualified doctor who's giving the patients the drugs and all of that kind of stuff. But yes, I would be involved in writing up the reports.
So you would know all the results, what's happening.
Yeah. So some things obviously you can disclose. And then other things you're like, I can't. That's confidential information.
Fair enough. Okay, and so what's one of your favorite stories that reinforced that this is definitely what I want to do? If you have any. or like a moment, or there was like, yeah, nah, I do like this. This is where I want to be.
I really can't think of anything specific.
Or your first year, or like, you know, one of the years that you're like, yeah, you know what, I actually can see myself doing this for a little while now.
I'm blank, because I would say that it's been a good experience overall,
Right.
but I would probably say that now what I'm doing, I feel like I'm making an impact in a sense, because, you know, making sure that, you know, the information is like, you know, you're submitting it to the FDA or you're submitting it to the EMA, and they essentially, you know, have the say on whether this drug is going to be approved or not. So making sure that information is presented in the right way, you know, without, you know, altering the results and, you know, basically making the company shine in the best light possible. You know, I think that has been really, it's been really good, because companies want to develop a drug as quickly as possible, but as safely as possible. So being at that end process, I think, is quite important.
Have you had any rejections?
Yeah, I mean, they do come back and they say, "Oh, can this be amended?" You do have like meetings with them where you do try and like clarify some of the results. Maybe they might not even like your study design, like how the study was designed, and they say, "No, this needs to be done X, Y, and Z." But rejections is more as a way to improve.
Okay.
To improve
so it's just
what's
more
there.
amendments instead of actually saying,
Exactly.
no, you can't do it.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Unless it's like completely like ethically and, you know, unsound, and the patients are unsafe and all of that kind of stuff, then that's a hard no. But, you know, because the most important thing is making sure that the patients are safe, and, you know, that it's ethical. So
is there any misconceptions in your role? Like, you know, when you say medical writer or technical writer, is it like, you know, you said something like what's it called? You write for health magazines or something like that.
Yeah, like some people think because they don't know what medical writing is, and I didn't know. And I feel like it's something maybe that evolved, like it's just come about within, like, let me say, like the last, is it 20 years? I'm not even too sure, but it's not something that always existed. So I would probably say, people think you're writing for a health magazine, or, you know, I've had people approach me and they want me to like for software stuff, and it's like, no, I work within Pharma. So like there's a lot of IT jobs that have technical writers, so maybe they think that I'm doing that. So I have a lot of recruiters approach me, I've got a job like within IT, and I'm like, I work within Pharma. You know, so I don't even know what software documentation you're on about. You know?
would you move from like is there another industry that you could go to? Like, I know you're mainly in pharma. Is there loads of different other industries that does medical and technical writers?
Like I mentioned, IT does. Obviously, in terms of a medical writer, I think that's really unique to the pharma industry. Technical writing, I've heard about in IT. I don't know about other industries, to be honest.
So these are the main ones.
That's the main one I can think of.
Okay, all right. So what we're gonna do? We're gonna go to a rapid round, or a fire rapid round.
Take it easy. Take it easy.
And, so it's basically 3 questions.
Okay.
Generally closed, so it's either yes or no, or you have to pick a choice. All right. So the first question is, if you could write about something else other than your medical, what would it be? Weather or muscles?
Muscles.
Oh, physio with that.
Muscles for sure.
All right, fair enough. All right, second question. Have you ever worked on a top secret medical report?
Yes and no.
It's one.
Yes, I have. Yeah.
And the last one, which was easier to write? Your last medical report, or your uni assignment, your dissertation?
My last medical report.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like my uni assignments were long.
I thought these were long.
Yeah, they were long. Like, because You know, because you were involved in the whole process, like, I don't know how yours was, but, you know, from the actual experiments and then, like, to the actual results and everything. For me, like, doing a report, I don't have to do stats. There's a statistician already there. Do you know what I mean? So it's literally just me looking at the data. Does it make sense? But how can you interpret it?
Isn't it long writing, though?
It is long writing, but my uni assessment was as well. If you're talking about my thesis, that was 10,000 words.
Wow. Yeah. So what was these kind of words?
What?
Well, how much was these words?
This one could, I'm not sure, but those documents can get up to like about 80 pages or something like that. And then as well, you don't write the whole of the document. Sometimes you have stats writing their part specifically for stats. Then you have like maybe the PK people writing their part specifically for pharmacokinetics. And you just have to sense check it. And then obviously what you're doing now is just like a summary of that data. Does that make sense? So I'm just like summary, but there's different people involved. You're just kind of like the person that manages that report to make sure it's done on time and all of that kind of, basically coordinating different people.
But that's dope though.
It's interesting.
That's dope. That's dope. So, in your opinion, where would the healthcare industry be without your profession?
That's such a interesting question, but I feel like it's such a general one as well. Definitely within pharma companies, I could definitely say you do need people like me who are able to, you know, put the information in, like, you know, the right format, put it in for the right audience as quickly as possible. So you need people who are, you know, I guess, you know, that can help pharma companies to speedily get to the market as quickly as possible, basically. And, you know, you want to get through because, you know, some of the limiting rate factors can be, you know, the FDA regulators. So you need people who, like, essentially know what they're doing with the reports and submissions and all of that kind of stuff. And then, you know, obviously on the process side of things, you know, if you're out of compliance, your company can get fined. So you need to be within compliance, with external regulations. So that is so important to pharma companies, and how they run their, you know, their businesses.
So you make basically everything as efficient as it could be.
As efficient as possible, But I didn't know how to summarise.
No, that's good. All right, so fair enough. All right. And do you see the profession progressing in any way? So medical writers, technical writers, do you see it progressing? It could be, you know, more status, more recognition. I don't know. Do you feel?
I definitely feel there needs to be more recognition, because even sometimes, even within the business, and you're introducing yourself to like your colleagues, and they're asking you like, what exactly? Can I ask, like, what is it that you do again? So I definitely do feel like there needs to be more recognition for what we do. Definitely in terms of career progression, I do really wish there was like a more, I guess, a more structured, you know, career progression, because with a lot of medical writers, it's almost like once you've got to the principal medical writer, and, you know, you're maybe like looking after a team of medical writers, a lot of them probably go on to, you know, run their own freelance business and all of that kind of stuff. So I wish there was more, I guess, like more of a career route for like medical writers, and definitely more recognition, because up until now, people even within that work within pharma, they don't even know sometimes what you're doing. Like you have to be like, okay, I do this, blah 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 blah. So
fair enough. All right. And what is missing from your profession?
It's not. I would say face-to-face contact. I know it doesn't seem like a big deal, but a lot of our work is remote working.
Because you just deal with data and
exactly. So I could literally be, you know, in my room working on data and not necessarily having any like meeting, not having that many meetings with people. So it's a lot of remote working, and a lot of like you're almost working in a silo.
So,
you know,
would it make your writing better if you could get like a better understanding? Like if you was to speak to a doctor or speak to someone that was really involved in the study, would it change your?
It would definitely like bring a new perspective.
Okay.
Yeah, on what I'm doing. For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah.
How would it work though? How would you just like, all right, yeah, how would the face-to-face kind of thing work?
You know, yeah, that's the thing, because medical writers don't have so much. I mean, unless it was advisory meetings, like formal meetings that you set up, advisory meetings with like, you know, healthcare professionals, things like that.
Yeah.
Maybe where you're trying to gauge like the unmet need, or you have like really formal meetings with the FDA where you're having meetings like that. That could be, but they're not all the time. So yeah.
Have you ever been part of that? Any of those kind of meetings? Like
I have been. I've been involved in the writing of it, not necessarily like actually being the one to now go and present it, but yeah, like you have to write all your responses, so the FDA have to like see what you know.
What was your longest piece of writing or longest report or thing that you've ever done before?
Definitely a protocol. That was over 200 pages. But like I said, I didn't write up the whole document by myself, yeah.
How much of that did you write? 200 pages, right.
Like I'll probably say it could be like about 30 to 40% of it. Because, you know, a lot of it's, you know, like I said, other people are involved. And then, you know, thank God, like we have templates in place. Yeah, so sometimes it's like a copy and paste job. But I think the longest part is just probably like QCing all of that, and then you know, like making sure all of that stuff makes sense. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. All right. So the show is called The Professionals You Should Know. Why do you think individuals should know you? In a few short words.
Okay, let me try to summarize as quickly as possible. You know, I would like to say that people should know about medical writing and technical writing more, especially for people who have the science, they've come from a science background. Maybe you've done your PhD and you want to move away from the lab. It's a great way of, you know, still staying within science, but you know, still getting to work on, you know, interesting projects. Yeah. So if you're tired of the lab, become a medical writer.
All right, and the last and final question is, who's another professional that you think we all should know?
Okay, so I have a friend, and she's an engineer. Okay. And she actually works within sustainability, so I think that would be another interesting conversation.
What's her name?
Joya.
All right, I'm gonna find her. All right, that's good. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's been great.
Thanks.